Are we on? Hey guys, we appreciate you hanging with us so much. I'm so sorry we're having weird Facebook technical glitchy issues. We've made it, you've made it, you're here. It's Jerry's Live. Welcome. As always, I'm your host, Amy Gardner-Dean. And I was doodling while I was waiting because that's frustrating for everyone. And we appreciate your patience. Today we've got episode JL136. The episode is Charcoal Pencil Demo Immediate Sketching. If you've been with us so far this month, each week we are doing an immediate, some sort of immediate art. Just trying to get you in the mindset of you may only have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes to be able to just grab a couple supplies out of your studio or a drawer, get them out, actually try to get just a little bit of work done. It doesn't have to be finished work. It's work for the sheer just practice of it, the joy of it, just making sure you've got time to at least be productive, even if you maybe you're kind of that mindset where you're just not sure if you want to or not. So that's what these issues have been, or issues, these different episodes have been about. And hopefully it's helping you kind of get some new insights, some new ideas, encouraging you to maybe try some of these techniques that we've shown just when you've got that little bit of time. So today, charcoal pencils. I like charcoal pencils because I'm not a fan of mess. And if I only have a short amount of time to work, I do not want to get out sticks and get super dirty. That's just me. There's other people that probably delight in it that are the pig pens of the art world. I'm just not. So we're going to be using the Marie's charcoal pencils. I've got the extra soft, the soft, and what's called medium or neutral, which is kind of the hardest of them. They've got a great paper wrapping that looks like a wood barrel, but it's really super fine, very tightly wrapped paper. So it gives it protection. It's easy to sharpen, but it just has kind of a nice feel to it and a little bit of flex. So it's just kind of comfortable in the hand. Strathmore 500 series charcoal paper pad. The paper I normally use for just immediate sketching is our favorite colossal sketch pads that Jerry's has. The tooth for it is great with this type of charcoal work. However, right now they've been so popular we have been sold out, so we're waiting on a shipment, and it's something we love. So instead, this was something that I had that I use from time to time. 500 series is the cotton, because you never know if you're going to do something that you really like, and it might as well be archival and ready to go. So that's what we're going to use today is the Strathmore 500 series charcoal paper. It's got some nice tooth to it. We've got Coombe pencil sharpener, 2 erasers, the Marie's 4B eraser that I'm a huge fan of. It can erase even oil pencil, so love those. And then we've got a Faber-Castell kneaded eraser if we need to pull up any dusty, areas for pickup. And then my favorite fixative for charcoal is the Sennelier Delacroix. It's for pencil charcoal and like oil-based crayons. So it just is a very nice, very light fixative that holds really well. So that's what we had here in the studio. So I just put that on there for you to think about and consider. Once you do those charcoal drawings, go ahead and do the fixative on them. It'll save it, preserve it, keep it smear free. So anyway, so let's get started. What time do we start, Katie, so we make sure that we give them a full hour?
We're about 4 minutes in at the moment.
Okay. So. All right. So that'll let me kind of know what we're doing time-wise.
I'll count you down.
All right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get this set up so we can go ahead and we'll go past the one that I started on. So I just grabbed 2 subject matters, well, a couple subject matters, and then the girls picked what they liked best. So you're right there, Mercy. And again, if you're wanting to know any of these products, if you pick up a little later with us, JL136 is the keyword. You can go to the jerrysartorama.com website, type in JL136. It'll show you any of these products that we're using on that. So we've got an elephant in black and white because I thought that might be a nice, kind of easy to see. We're worrying about form, not how to portray the colors of it in form. And then we've got half of an onion slice, just because that's got some really nice lines. We can kind of practice line work, whether we want to make it heavier, lighter, just that kind of stuff with immediate sketching. Because that's something that's, I think this is the thing that most artists have problems with, is line stroke quality. So it's a good thing to practice when you've got a little bit of time. All right. So Katie, if we can get the overhead so that they can see it, and we put one up here so I've got it kind of up out of the way. Perfect. All right. So you know what? We've got room, so I'm going to move that over. I think that would be easier. That it seems like the glare is a little less on the lights for that. All right. And Katie, while we start, do you want to tell them about the annual self-portrait contest while I start just kind of laying out the sketches, or you want me to?
Go for it. I'll let you know.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll go for it. Well, I'm trying to draw. So 8th annual portrait contest. It goes from now until April 12th, right? Mm-hmm. So $5,000 worth of prizes. The winners are announced June 12th. 30 popular vote finalists, meaning it doesn't have to be the best one in there. As long as you got some followers that are willing to come on there and vote, you can be one of the finalists and win some prizes. There's 30 jury chosen finalists, and then out of those, there is a professional panel of artists that will go from there and be able to pick the winners.
Those top 60 will be entered into the final round of voting.
Yes.
To pick the winners from.
So that's and that's how it's done. So you need to get that in by April 12th.
If they go to the website and just put self-portrait into the search bar,
yes,
take them right to the page where they can enter.
Okay.
They can then share. Now, I have had a couple of people that are already asking about voting. Voting does not start until entry closes. So it may look like you can vote, but there's no voting happening yet.
Yeah, you gotta get stuff in first. Gotta let everybody get their chance.
Yeah, everybody's got to get in, and then we'll open the voting.
So,
I have a quick question on YouTube. Are the prizes available to Canada, or is it United States only?
Oh,
I do
good
believe
question.
This one, because the prizes are e-gift cards, it's open worldwide, but let me double check that.
Good question.
Yeah. I do believe this one we can.
Okay. All right. So that's cool. All right. Very good. So anyway, get your artwork in for that. Remember, self-portrait means it's a person portrait. It's you. It's not, and it's got to be actual artwork. It can't be selfies with a camera or with a phone, all that stuff. It's one thing if you take the picture and then turn it into a painting. So, and every year it seems like we get a whole bunch of people that don't we're an art supply company, so you want it to be art supplies that you're using for it. So I think did we hit on all the marks for that? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so all I've been doing so far is blocking this in. I'm not making any super heavy lines. It's a little bit hard to see right now, I think, just because I'm kind of ghosting in a very quick underdrawing. So now I'm going to come back in and make some more. There's some things that I can already see that I want to change a little bit. So I'll come back in and make kind of some adjustments. Like I can see in my drawing that this is not wide enough here. I've kind of been talking and going off other points and not paying attention. So I'm going to come back and bring my eye out and make sure I've got them up high enough. Typically I wouldn't do this, but since charcoal's a little bit easier to see, I'm gonna just take a few things out just so I don't have so much line work. All right, So I like that. I like where this is for the tusks. So I'm going to go ahead and put his eyes in here. So just so I can kind of see where I'm at. The eyes are really in this, other than the shadows in here, the darkest thing in the entire kind of drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of get those sketched in and go ahead and make them dark so I can kind of see where's my darkest darks, so I know where I'm going to be working from. And with that, I'm not going to make them super black. This is my hardest pencil. This is not the soft one, but I just want to be able to kind of see where I'm going from here. Okay? All right. And if there's any questions, just holler.
No
Shout
question, but Richard is glad your arm is better.
Yes. Well, I don't have to wear the brace. It's not necessarily better.
It's getting there.
But thank you. Yes. Still trying to figure it out. All right. So I'm going to take this and make some darker darks kind of in here in the face where I want this area of the tusks to kind of come down from. I'm trying to just kind of find the form, okay? See, feel, find the form. The same with, I want to look at this, but I've got a really bad reflection and you guys don't. So I've got my one up here. I'm going to try to find the form of the tusks. Now the foreshortening for it, you want to shoot them out to the side because you know that's kind of where they go, but we're seeing them from the front. So right there is the point of that. This is the very tip right here. So we're going to have this kind of come down. We're going to see underneath. We're seeing the very kind of fattest part of it due to the foreshortening. So I'm going to pull that out here.
Amy Maria is wondering, when you're normally drawing, do you usually draw flat or on an easel or tilted board?
That's a good question. I probably what I do most when it's my own work. It's Maria, right? Asked is she asked what my preference was for drawing, whether I'm working at an easel, whether I'm working at a drawing board. Probably through school I used drawing boards, but now because just my work table setup, I like to put it on a board, mount it on a wood board, and then I tilt it kind of however I want it. So I actually sit, I do have the stand, so I can tilt it with the stand, but depending on how my arm feels in the chair, I may have different chair heights, right? So if I sit lower, I want to be able to tilt it up and down, so I don't have it on the stand. But I do most of my drawing at a work table, unless it's a painting, and then obviously that's going to be on an easel. But I don't like my hand out like this. I don't feel like, because I will tend to take my pencil and hold it and measure, and I put my finger down to brace to not smear. It's really hard to do when you're on a surface where you're upright. And I don't feel like I've got gravity to kind of help with the line quality. If that makes, I mean, that sounds like a weird thing, but it's just, it is.
Jeff on YouTube would like to know if there's any way, and I quote, to make charcoal not feel like nails on a chalkboard.
Oh, I agree.
These actually, another reason why I like these, because that sound creeps me out. So these are not as bad as sticks and other things. The softer and more compressed the stick is, usually the less, and I really swear that's why people are into the oil compressed charcoal sticks, because they don't do that. It's for all those misophonia inflicted artists out there, I guess.
Now, would the paper have anything to do with that?
It probably depends on the paper. This stuff has a little bit of drag because it's really textured. I can hear it. I don't know if it's picking up for them.
Another benefit to these pencils is your hands are still clean.
Yeah.
Sort of, so far. Yeah.
They're clean for Amy.
For Amy, yes,
if it
they
were
are.
charcoal, you'd already be
Oh,
looking
yes.
like a Dalmatian.
Yeah. No, they're the simplest of pencils, and I didn't think with the paper binding it would be. I don't know. I'm kind of a traditionalist with supplies, and after the first drawing I did with these, I bought. I don't even know how many boxes, dozens of boxes, and my son is a senior in college, getting a studio art degree, and when he was doing figure drawing, they worked in charcoal all the time. I got him tons of boxes too, because it's just one of those things where they're just delightful to use, B, the variations of from the hard to soft, get really, like, this isn't as black. The other one we'll show you in a little bit. It's nice and black. They're just very user friendly. Okay. And you can see I'm putting different pressure in some places to get a little bit harder line. I apologize that this photo unfortunately was cropped right up here, so we're kind of where there's points, like on some of these, I will tend to make like this harder just to emphasize the difference in where kind of that bonier protrusion is. Because you don't want some of these areas where it's transition where we're seeing kind of the foreshortening of this skull. They have these very, I guess, primitive, almost dinosaur-like skulls. So we're seeing the kind of, this would be where all the soft tissue attaches to the skull. So you don't want your line to be hard there, because that's not really a hard line. It's not where something is falling away. Back here, that actually recesses back behind that eye socket kind of protrusion. So I'm going to make that more of a hard-edged line. Can I keep looking at instead of looking at my easel thing here. I'm so used to having my reference thing immediately next to it. Okay, so trunks are tricky with that foreshortening. You want to tend to just make it one thickness, because that's kind of how you think you see it. It's actually, because this is coming at you in this area, you want that to be that little bit thicker, and then this curls up and it looks like it's going back up under here, but you can't see it in the shadows. So I'm actually going to give more information than that drawing is, just so that it gives you a little bit more of that natural curve where that would be going on him. Drawn enough elephants where I feel fairly confident that that's going back in there to that mouth. Okay.
Amy.
Yes.
Linda on Facebook was wondering if there was a way to use clear gesso over it without smudging.
Okay, so I have done that with charcoal and with, it's a good question. The question is, and I'm just saying it because I don't know if people are picking up Amanda's voice. Would you fix this to put clear gesso on it without it smudging? A lot of workable fixatives, you should be able to do multiple light coats. You don't want to do them heavy, and you don't want to do a ton of them, because you don't want there to be that unstable layer, right, between whatever this is, whether it's on paper, whether it's on canvas, acrylic priming canvas or something like that. So you want just to fix it enough, and then when you go over it with your acrylic and the brush, you could do one of two things. Thin it down a little and use a roller. No, because the roller goes over it, it doesn't smear it like a brush is, right? So it's not dragging. It goes on and it just goes right across.
Makes sense.
But it would need to be like you know when you paint trim in your house, there's a little soft roller that's kind of on a little hand thing. You want it to be soft, but because acrylic gesso is clear and it's got a lot more resin, if you make it like too thick of layering, it might dry cloudy, so you won't get that kind of perfectly transparent nature of the gesso through it. So you just have to be you want to practice it first on another substrate that you're using, right? not on, do some scribbling and do it on your, do it with the materials that you're going to use for it. Do some scribbles and give it a go with the fixative and then with the gesso first. So, but it should work. I've actually done it by, rather than the roller I thought of after the fact, I've actually done it by hand with super soft, like goat hair brushes. It would start dragging it just a little, but I did not put very much fixative on it because I was so afraid that it wouldn't bond. So and that was on a wood panel. So again, another hard surface that doesn't have the tooth that this has, but it's definitely very possible. It's just one of those things that you do want to practice to get right. Okay, so we're just kind of getting some of the curves of the ear here. We can't see over the edge here where this ear is. There's not a delineated shadow, so I'm just going to kind of leave that very faint line that suggests where that goes, okay? We don't have to have it heavy there. This is his leg, so we're going to come back down here. We lose a lot of this into shadow in here. Shadow. So let's get some of these other forms and then we'll start working on shading. Now with this, it comes up and across, right? So let's get some of these larger forms first where this is coming up and across.
Hey Amy,
yes.
Karen on YouTube would like to know if this photo is available anywhere for them to use. Could we post it in the live group? It's
on Pixabay. I will post them probably tomorrow, since we started late, probably tomorrow. I'll post them in the group by noon tomorrow. The ones that we're using here, so that you guys will be able to access those. Will that work? So, and if you're not sure, you're like, what post what, where, we have a Jerry's Live Facebook group. Go to groups on Facebook, type in Jerry's Live. That will take you to it. You do have to answer the question or you will not be admitted into the group. Once you're in that group, you can post artwork. You can make all sorts of cool friends. We've got a great community full of all sorts of really amazing artists. Not only artists, but just people that are students, people that are just, getting started. We've got professionals that illustrate books. It's a great group to be in, but we post lots of references and sometimes homework in there. So go ahead and get on there if you want to be able to get these references. And Pixabay, if you're not familiar with Pixabay, Pixabay is a free use website for just anybody, where you can, they're copyright free images. The best thing to do, because it can be all sorts of vectors and everything else, always set it to photos for your searches, and then you'll get photos of kind of whatever you want. Okay, I'm just going by contour here, starting to kind of work where some of the shadows are. Okay, now with this, I'm just gonna make the lines don't have to be perfect, but I want to try to get kind of close. Remember, we're not worrying about the image being perfect. We're worrying about, does this translate well? Is this starting to look believable? As I'm bringing this down here, these lines get straighter. They're not curving as much because that transition's starting to happen where his trunk's starting to then start falling away from you. So you need to make sure that you're making those adjustments so that this reads correct. You can see I'm just kind of ghosting and dragging that along there. Now, let's see, we probably better do his other ear over here. It's in shadow. And then we got this little bump over here. You can see as my pencil starts getting less sharp, it's not keeping kind of as fine and pretty of a line. ears have a lot of wrinkles in there. It's harder for you guys to see probably in that shadow. Okay, so what do we do from here? We start putting in layers of shadow. I kind of put some in there. I'm gonna switch, actually I'm gonna switch to the kind of mid-soft range, and I'm gonna put a little bit of some of these darker lines in. Again, I'm just putting my fingernail down because the fingernail's pretty small. It's not gonna move a lot of surface area. And I'm gonna get some of these areas that I want that are gonna be in shadow, kind of firming up my lines so I know for sure this is where I want my lines to go. Okay, and I'm gonna, my shadowing, I'm actually putting small lines and I'm following the contour, okay, of the elephant. I'm not, contour means where the body turns and kind of bends. I'm using the lines to follow that. Okay, so same over here. This has got a pretty black area right there, and then it's pretty much the same value. So there's a line there. Okay, this eye you almost can't even see, it's so kind of shaded back behind here, and you lose the pupil. So I'm actually going to use that, kind of make some of those twists and turns that are in there and go ahead and lose that value where you can't see as much. Because it's pretty dark right there. Okay, that's kind of all in that. See how that starts making it much more three-dimensional. All right, over here we've got a little bit. Just holler questions as you guys have them.
I actually have a question.
Yes.
You have 3 different colors of the boxes of those pencils on the table.
Mm-hmm.
What are the differences?
There is, and that's how kind of seeing what the list is of the supplies. There's a medium neutral, which is the hardest, right? Then there's a soft, then there's an extra soft. So
It's actually a good time to remind people that if they put the keyword JL136 in the search bar on the site, it'll take them straight to that. And they can see all the stuff that you're using.
okay, medium neutral. There's, make sure that's the soft, yeah. When you push on that, it distributes the, oops, let's do extra soft, sorry. See how much easier that is for me to, I'm barely pressing it, and see how much darker that is. Okay, so that's the difference. Look how black I can make that if I push. Right? And that neutral's going to be much harder. See? The big difference? I mean, you can push slightly harder with the soft. It's just a nice kind of darker. And I don't think this shows as kind of brightly, since it's not a super white paper. That cream kind of makes it, and just the television and everybody's monitors and stuff makes it a little harder to kind of see for sure, right? But
You can see it pretty good.
okay. All right, so
That bottom one.
yes. So next I'm going to come in here, because I think the next most important place is kind of these tusks, right? I'm going to make those.
While you're doing that, Amy,
Yes.
Patty Fuller from Facebook wants to know if you make a mark or put down a line, how easily lifted with the kneaded eraser is it?
Kneaded erasers lift dust. Kneaded erasers don't lift lines per se. All right, so we're gonna, I know, these gross me out. So this is a lot easier to see how that pulled up some, it lightened it some by just pushing and pulling up a little. See how that's lighter? But it doesn't really erase, right? And it just transferred more of that over there. Okay, where this, the Marie's, you can actually, it's gonna depend on paper. This paper has a lot of texture, so you're not gonna get it all erased on it. It depends on what type of charcoal you have. If there's any oil in it, that's not coming off, you know, with a texture like this. It might lighten it, but it's not coming off. So it's more, when you get a new paper pad, take the first piece and do some experimenting. We tell you all the time, swatch your paints so you know what to expect, right? How many people swatch their new pencils? Besides Frida and Amanda, how many people really swatch their new pencils? When you get a tin of graphite pencils, you just know, okay, they're in the order from hardest to darkest, so, you know, hardest to softest, so that's going to be lightest to darkest. Not always on every paper. So if there's a set of drawing tools you use a lot and you're going to use them on a new pad, you know, you get new charcoal paper, it's going to perform very different from a different brand of paper that wasn't charcoal paper, you know, that you used it on, or even from brand to brand in charcoal paper. It's going to perform very differently. So it's always a good idea to do that, to erase. When, like, we've had some different sketchbook papers that we've looked at making sketchbooks for Jerry's, right? It's my job when we look at those to take it, and there's about 12 to 15 different materials that I try on each paper and do eraser tests with charcoal and with graphite to see how well does this paper erase. And then everything gets rated. So if there's 12 different items, it all gets rated in comparison to each other. How hard is this to erase? How nice of a line does this paper make? Is it too soft for these type of things? It might be perfect for charcoal. It might be way too soft for graphite. You know, graphite might dent it. So those are things that, you know, if I'm doing that for paper to give a definition and a, you know, descriptor of for you to buy it, you should be doing that with paper that you're actually going to use as tools, right? So it seems like a weird thing, but trust me, it makes a big difference in how kind of ready you are to actually work with it once you've got it there and ready to go.
Also, which pencil are you using right now?
I believe it's the soft.
Okay.
No, it's the soft, because I'm wanting to get a little bit darker line just for the, if I was doing this on an artwork that I was going to keep for me, I would use the neutral just to get lines in first. But we don't have that luxury of that time right now. What's going on, Katie?
Fixing a camera.
Now, okay. She's creeping over here. It's like, what's she doing? Okay. So see, by a little bit of shading on the tusk here, we can give the illusion of that point is here for sure. I hope that this is showing up darker on their monitors than it is on mine. Because to me it's not.
Pencils are showing up really well,
They
actually.
really are.
Okay, good. Okay, so in these areas where we've got these blackest blacks, I mean, you could use even, you don't have to use, you can use bigger, more expressive, darker lines. One of the pieces we were going to look at doing was a gorilla. And when I do work like that where there's hair, all of my lines in drawing are super dark and super expressive, like this type of shadow that I'm going to do right here. Just to try to get this in so you can kind of see the ear will pop out a little bit. And then I'm going to go back in
We here in YouTube land have a question about the hardness of the charcoal lead compared to a standard graphite lead. If you push too hard with a normal pencil, you're going to leave a dent in the paper. Is that an issue with these as well, or are they?
If you push too hard with charcoal, it's going to snap. Because it's push. I can hear it crack.
I heard it from over here.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I can get this super dark. Now I'm the way that I'm putting pressure on it is very. I know what angle to put it at without making it snap, right? But when I shade, I turn it on its side and I do lines. Okay, so I don't put as much pressure because it's more the mark that I'm looking for, not the pressure. Better to put less pressure on it and do more lines. More mark making, I think, looks better than a lot of very heavy, you know. Now, with this, I would normally not do this bold because, to me, it plays with texture, which the elephant does not have texture. The texture of the elephant is within the wrinkles, right? It's not like it's got hair. And putting too much of this, unless the whole thing's going to just be loose and kind of scratchy, is not so conducive to. But I want to do this so we can make this stuff pop out. Go ahead.
Alexandra would like to know if a carbon pencil is considered another form of charcoal, or is it a whole different category?
Carbon?
Mm-hmm.
Carbon is just basically, I mean, a pigment. It's very similar to graphite in the performance. It's, I mean, just kind of another tool of the same. It's always good to try the performance of all of them, you know, with the mark making and see kind of, and again, it's going to be different on Bristol as to this paper, as to thin sketch paper, as to cotton watercolor paper, right? Any of the things. So it's just in trying, people are always very resistant to, but I don't want to waste paper. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. If you don't know how it's going to work, you're not going to know how to properly.
It's not a waste if you're learning from it.
No. Do we want to stick with this one and just finish this since, are people vested in this, or do we want to go to the onion? How do people want to do this?
Give them about 30
That's
seconds.
fine. I'll just keep working on this. Is it more important for us to kind of see how it's laid out, or see how things finish up with shading?
While we're waiting for answers on that, can you talk about erasers for a moment? Patty Fuller said that she sees that you have the Marie's 4B on the list, which you can find by JL136 on the website. Can you buy erasers like you do sketching pencils? And in which case would you use a hard eraser?
Hard erasers are going to depend. Okay, again, anytime you're using materials in conjunction with each other, it depends on the drawing material, it depends on the eraser, it depends on the paper material. Something that's going to make marks on different types of paper is going to be erased differently by different erasers, and then also the paper may or may not be erased by different erasers because of the softness or the hardness or the slickness or the absorbency. So it just depends. That's why I know it seems silly. They come up with, you pull up eraser on our website and there's like, what, 20 or 30 different things, and then there's stick erasers, blah, blah, blah. Every eraser does a different job. Every eraser excels at picking up particular, yeah, bring that over here so they can see. This is how many erasers,
Keep in the studio.
this is how many erasers we have here in the studio. There's a dry cleaning pad and a battery operated eraser, and all of this. Because all these serve different functions, right? Because all these excel at erasing specific things. There would be no reason to come up with new this, that, and the other thing erasers if everything that you use could be erased by something that already existed on the market, what would the point of that? Yeah, because it's a small ticket item, it wouldn't be a lot of profit in it, right? But because some things don't erase well, other things, you know, it's all in the research of developing new things that are going to pick up different types of medium. Something you would use to try to lighten and pick up a soft pastel is going to be vastly different than something you're going to use on, like, say, an ebony pencil, right? That's super, like, 9B dark graphite wise. What is everybody saying for the...
YouTube is voting for the elephant.
Okay.
Hands down.
All right, Amanda?
Facebook is straight up tied.
Okay.
Well,
We
we've
might
got
be
20
leaning towards
minutes.
onion.
Okay, so if we've got 20 minutes, let's do this. Let's finish the elephant, because then everybody can see what that looks like. And then we will post the homework of the onion. I mean, I'll post both of the drawings in both of the examples in the Facebook, and I will do the onion with the thing, and I'll see if I can't. I've been trying to, I just got a new iPad, and I would really love to learn how to video work being done, so I will see if I can't, within the next week, get it set up and do like a little video of,
I think you know some people that can help you with that.
well, that's true. That's
you
a
just
good
go
point.
old school and tape it to an easel.
Yeah, right? Yeah, Katie's the master of that.
Roberta on Facebook is wondering, since there are no catch lights in the elephant's eyes in the source photo, would you use artistic license to add them to give it more visual interest, or would you leave it just like the photo?
Well, okay, so there's not a highlight source in this, right? It's a very grayed out photo. Ivory tusks are generally like, it's a bone white. It's ivory white. They're so grayed in this that you are not going to have a highlight source. Putting a highlight source in when one doesn't exist is kind of like making it go from looking realistic to cartoonish. The viewer's not going to understand that they don't see a highlight source on it. They're just going to know it looks wrong if there's super white reflections in the eyes, right? So, and the paper is a cream that I'm using, a natural cream. So if I put a super white light source, that's going to stick out like a sore thumb to me. You don't always have to look at your subject matter and see whether you think by the light, by the, angle that it's at, by the values that exist with the other, shadows and things in it, evaluate whether you think you really need it or not. You may, but I wouldn't put one in if this was something that I was really looking to make super finished. I wouldn't do it.
Karen would like to know how these pencils are sharpened. Can you use just a regular pencil sharpener?
This is just the Coombe 2-hole magnesium
really?
pencil sharpener. That's super inexpensive. It's like, what, less than $3. Has the small and the large, so if you had a larger pencil, like the larger charcoal pencils or the larger oil pencils, it would do it. This fits perfect in the smaller one.
That sharpener is $1.88.
Yeah, kaboom. The packs of 12 pencils are what, 13 or 14 bucks for that many pencils?
$10.19.
Yeah. And to me, I don't know if you would need all of them. Really, you could go with the mid-range one, but I have all of them because I like the feel of the marks on some of them versus others. So, all right, I need to switch it over here. All right, so we've got some shadow in here. So I'm going to come down the face like that. There's this marvelous line right here. I'm going to enhance that somewhat. Now, with these, I'm just kind of scribbling in some of the texture lines that are in the elephant's face. I'm not measuring, I'm not checking the line against another line. I just like how kind of rough that line is. That starts suggesting the skin there, right? Down here, where you can see the jaw under here, it looks very strange. So I'm gonna take this and use some artistic license to kind of gray this out all the way to the edge of that jaw, and then come back in so it's giving that suggestion of the jaw, but we're not giving so much information that somebody's like, yes, that's right, no, that's wrong. It's called artistic license. Again, I don't know if I would do this hard of a line here, but I'm wanting that so we can see kind of how this drops away. I could go back in later and smooth this out with a stomp if I wanted. All right.
Maria says that she suspects that you're as much of an art supply addict as all of us are. I said, mm-hmm.
If she's not joined our group, if you go back in our Facebook posts when my home studio got kind of finished finally, I think I took pictures of all the supplies in it, didn't I? Or had I not even put all the supplies in it yet?
It was very clean to be your studio.
That's because I hadn't worked in it yet. You ought to see it now.
I don't think you had unpacked most of your stuff,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, no, I usually start by cleaning off the work table because there's lots of things in there constantly. And because Riker was working in there, my son was working in there over Christmas on some paintings, so lots of things got moved around.
I'm sure most people in the chat can agree that you can never have too many art supplies.
Nope.
I will say I went through my acrylics and gave some away though.
Did you?
I decided to streamline to a couple of different brands because I felt like they worked really well together, and they just have colors a specific, like their quinacridone magentas, like the right pigment that I personally prefer, and I
Purge every once in a while so you can get more.
right. I did it, and I was very proud of myself. And I went through all my acrylic brushes, and I trashed the ones that really needed to go to the great brush.
Did it hurt your heart a little bit?
Brush God in the Sky. It did, but then when I went back in there and I could find things easier and get to brushes that were in really good shape, I felt very relieved. So, but as I was doing it, I was like, that's a lot of brushes to get rid of. Okay, can everybody see how this is kind of, I'm not so much drawing on this line. I don't want this to be super hard because again, this is like a soft tissue transition from these big kind of occipital areas on the elephant back to kind of the big lumpy back skull that it's got. So I'm just using line to kind of find that form and enhance it a little bit. Is that starting to look more three-dimensional to everybody?
Rude John suggested a few speckles of gold on the tusks to make them pop. I know that's not what we're doing today, but I thought it sounded
Just
great.
Do a little gold dipping. Well, it'd make it look, more
She's
like it was on a
fancy
shelf. I've got some gold gouache. I could do that, John. Don't tell
Well,
me.
that brings a good point. Could you layer something over top of that?
You would want to put that fixative on, and then you would probably need to use something like an acrylic gouache that could be layered over it, not something that's watercolor where it's not, this is paper's sized for that, but something dry brushed on very carefully after the sizing's been applied would definitely help, Turner acrylic wash would be perfect for that kind of thing, as long as the sizing, since it's good at sticking to everything. You know, that would be.
It does stick to everything.
It will stick to your fingernails, and you will take
Yes.
forever to get off.
It will.
Which is good, because then you know it works for other stuff. It's just not good if you actually get a manicure for once.
Cindy is wondering what you would use to smudge for softness.
What I would use to smudge?
Mm-hmm.
Is this Cindy Lemieux? She knows I don't smudge.
What would you recommend?
Yeah.
You could use tortillions. You could use stomps. We've got some over on the shelf. If somebody wants to grab some of those, I think they're on that shelf from one of the episodes we did last fall. We can use a little bit and soften some stuff. Okay.
You do not want to use your fingers though, for multiple reasons, including oils in your skin.
Yes, if I take this, and this is a cotton paper, so I guess at least it's archival, but your hand, even if you wash it, still has some layers of oil and gross and schmutz. And even on the side of your hand, I mean, you got dead skin flakes. Your body is an acidic gobbledygook of stuff. You don't want it in your drawing. And because what's going to happen is you might not see it now. Give it a year or two, you will start seeing these little kind of brownish prints, kind of little, almost like a really thin red, oxide or something like that. It'll be these little lovely fingerprints that you just put on. Okay.
If someone ate a sandwich and then touched the paper.
Yes, like that. Okay, stomp.
From experience there?
Who, me? No, we're talking about something that was framed and done. Somebody's looking at it. Okay, so see how that, since I used that softness, look how black that got. It was done the exact same way as over there, right? If I come up, this is the same, watch. If I come up here, look how much darker that just made that. I can use this as a tool and draw even into some of these lines that I've created, because it's got that little point to it, right? Watch how this is going to pop out. I'm using this like I would my pencil, cross-hatching with it. So where I'm actually drawing on it is smearing the line. See how much darker that side is than this side? Watch.
LA is wondering what's the difference between a stomp and a tortillion.
Okay, so a stomp is very fuzzy paper, really thin, that's rolled and layered. I'm gonna put it right over this, so it's easy to see. Okay, super fine, like they use a lot of rice paper or even newsprint for these, right? Stomp or stump, depending on who's doing it. Tortillion is a thicker paper. You can see like that, that's actually rolled, and it's got a texture to it, right? So, oh, there we go. Ah! Can you see that it's a paper? If I had fingernails, I could pull this apart and unroll it, because it's just a rolled thin paper, where this is super fine and almost fuzzy soft. I mean, see how that can just smeared that very gently. If I do that with a tortillion, to me a tortillion isn't as soft, so it's harder to smudge. Like, see how that's not smudging as smudging. See how that's not making that as dark? Watch when I take the other tool, I'm going to turn it so it's not the same blackness. Look how much darker I can get that, with that being that softer. See that? Okay, now, this is for this. I don't do this. I leave the lines as is, because to me, I would then have to do this through the majority of the rest of the work. And it takes away from the clarity and the importance of my line work that I worked so hard to put down. I mean, I could do that and then come back across it and put some lines down through it, but you really can't see it. you've really lost. Even if I take this soft, you can't see where those kind of beautiful lines are. Or if I come over here, see how you can still see those lines that I just put in there? Because the line work is not prohibiting that from being seen. This starts taking on a life of its own, in my opinion. It starts making form become very flat. The line work gives it better dimension. And in some cases, that's, unless it's very loose and smudgy all over and it's not tight and, you know, beautifully rendered, that's fine for that technique. A lot of what you'll find beginners and students do is smudging the crap out of everything, right? And making it very flat and basic. And if you're trying to draw it realistically, why go back and really take away from kind of the depth that you had going, right? With that line work. So just a personal, when I've got students, I try to encourage them not to ever use the stomps or the stumps. I think it's a bad habit to get in. It's like smoking at parties when you've been drinking. That can start, you know, going on from there. It's just a bad habit.
On a lighter note, Colorful Easel loved your use of the word smudging.
Smudging. It's a technical term.
Smudging.
We're gonna make that the Jerry's. We should just keep a list of Amy's Jerry's Artorama technical terms and uses. Smudging being one of them. All right, so how are we doing time wise?
5 minutes.
We're coming up on it, guys. Get in your last questions and comments and doodads here.
You said that you can't really sharpen or like renew the tortillons, but you can do the stomp on like a sandpaper block, right?
Yeah, the tortillons too, but it just makes them softer.
Oh, okay.
Right, so you won't have the kind of lesser heavy weight. I found that the tortillons work better for graphite, making it a little more subtle, because it doesn't lift as easy, where the stomps and stumps work a little bit better on the dustier mediums. But that's just, I'm going to switch back to the neutral because I'm coming across this. That's just kind of what I've found as far as kind of the control of it.
Sandra on YouTube really enjoyed this episode.
Awesome. Thank you, Sandra. She needs to join the group and get in on the homework. What? It's not graded.
I love when people.
But it
share.
does make me
Well,
deliriously
too, yeah.
happy. And if you do that and you ask for help, I will give you feedback and helpful hints and all that. But you have to tag me. So many posts are made constantly. You need to tag me by name so I know. That will alert me as to the posts. Yes.
We also said last week, the girls and I decided that if you tag the episode number, so when you're in there and you do hashtag JL136, then it'll be a way that you can click on that and you can see all the images from this episode. So it'll kind of gather them in a group with that hashtag, so then we can kind of see everything.
That's a very good point. So the way the group is set up, there's no way for us to take all your images and catalog them in an album, if you will. So if you put the hashtag for what show it was, just the JL, whatever the number is, that'll make it easier for people to pull up and find. I think that's a very, very good idea. Because that'd also be a way to, if you're not active for a while on social media and you want to come back and see what everybody posted, you can pull that up later. And not everybody watches these at all the same time, so it might be weeks until somebody gets to it and posts, and then, you know, you just didn't catch it.
Well, and then if you search the JL136 in the group too, if you're looking for like you said, there's so many posts and things like that. So if you're looking for the reference photos, you're going back tomorrow and looking for the reference photos, it should pull it right up.
Yes, I will try to remember to do that. Well, yeah. It's a good idea.
What do we got going on next week?
Next week thing is colored pencils, isn't it? Yeah, that's gonna be fun. I've got some prep work to do on that. Glass. We did a whole series last year of color, and we to make sure that everybody's medium gets some attention, we have to kind of space these out. So I apologize for people that love watercolor. It's going to be every 6 to sometimes 12 weeks that we can fit mediums in, depending on what our scheduling is for products that they want me to show uses of, for vendors that come in, etc. So we did some before. So if you didn't see those episodes, at the top of this show description, click on the description, because it will pull up the entire list of all the shows we've done, both in a document that's got chronological order and in a document that's got it by subject. So we did colored pencil, we did hair, we did like different weird textures and objects. Next week we're doing glass and we're doing marbles. So, and instead of, we used the Cezanne colored pencils last year, this year we're doing Soho. We're upping the ante because although the Cezanne set is a great price point for people just looking to get into colored pencil, and you can still follow along and do it. And you know what I'm going to come up with? I'm going to find some sort of crop out a marble image for homework for people that want to try it. But we're going to use the Soho for this year, since that's the professional pencils that we've got, just to kind of up the ante, to be able to see what that difference is between the two.
Also, fun fact, JL137 is live on the website right now, so if you want to get a head start and look at the supply list, you can go ahead and do that.
Perfect. So yeah, so you get to see what we're using for next week. So that will be what we are doing. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, I will get these images of the onion and the elephant put into the Facebook Live group by noon Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. And hope you guys had fun and learned a little something. So we will see you next week. Take care.